I'm Leslie Cato. I am the CEO and team leader at the KW Metuchen office. And this morning, I have the great honor and privilege to introduce you to one of our favorites, Linda McKissick. Now, those of you who don't know who Linda is, well, you're going to find out today, but most of us do know. Linda is featured in our MREA book. Linda is called the Profit Share Queen. And about a decade ago, I was fortunate as an agent to attend a class she had called How to Take 10 Listings Every Single Month or Forever. So I pulled this back from the pile I have because I keep everything. And so I'm sure Linda's going to be able to share a lot with you today, and you're going to learn a lot. And again, this is Listing Mania. So who else could we possibly bring to really help with that? So Linda, please take the floor, introduce yourself, because I'm sure there's a whole lot more that you can share with us, what you've been doing, what you're currently doing, and also who you are. So everyone has a real good grasp. Hopefully I have a funny story. So every year I run into Linda at family reunion or mega camp. And I said, Linda, you got to come to a market center. You got to come to a market center. This is years ago. She's like, oh, I'll, you can Skype me in or whatever. And I'm like, I don't want to Skype you in. And here we are. She would always tell me, yeah, Skype me. I'll come. But no, I need to know when you're coming to our area so I can have you at our market center. And she's like, no, I'll just Skype me. And I'm like, so Linda's ahead of her time. When right now, what do? We're Skyping and Zooming and Google Meets everywhere with everyone. So anyway, thanks so much for making the time, Linda. I really appreciate it because I know you really, really always pour into our agents, and we so appreciate it. Thank you so much for making the time. We appreciate it. Help me welcome Linda, guys. I know we're on Facebook, we actually should be on Facebook as well. I know we are on Google, not Google Meets, we're actually on Zoom, but please unmute and just help me say welcome to Linda for making the time to do that. So thank you. Unmute yourselves and let's just say welcome, Linda. Thank you so much for your time. Really, really appreciate it.
Welcome,
Thank
Linda.
you. Thank you.
Welcome, Linda.
My pleasure. You know what? Besides passive income, I love leverage. Anything that's a form of leverage is like one of my favorite, kind of hacks that I love to figure out. So the beautiful thing about Zoom is it is actually being able to leverage ourselves. I've actually been able to do more opportunities that I couldn't do in the past because travel limited it. So I'm all about leverage and freedom and all those fun things. And that's one reason why Leslie had me come talk to you about listings, because listings is one of the highest forms of leverage we can get in our business. So I'm super excited. But let me back up a little bit and kind of tell you, how did I actually even become the person that is talking to you about listings, right? I could talk to you all day about passive income, and I could talk to you about leverage in your business, and listings is certainly the best first way you should ever leverage yourself, because God only gave us 24 hours. He didn't give me 48 and you guys 24. He gave us all 24. And so part of the race is to figure out, how do you leverage that time that God gave us to actually make the most of it, right? So when I first started out in the real estate business, I didn't do great in the beginning. I only made $3,000. I got in because my husband had sold a business for $600,000 less than we owed against it. So immediately I started behind the 8 ball, right? I had never finished college. No one in my family had gone to college. I had never, figured out who I was and how I could make more than minimum wage. And it was my husband's suggestion that I actually do real estate. So I got into real estate, not having I never even knew a realtor, because we'd never owned, my family and I had never owned a home. So I didn't even know what a realtor was or what they did or anything. And so my husband suggested, based on how hard he saw me work at everything I ever did, that real estate might be a good fit for me. And so I started out with a bang. I like to say he was $600,000 in debt, and I only made $3,000 gross my first year, and he spent 15 for me to make 3. He immediately let me know that the math was not correct, that we could not keep doing that, and that I needed to figure out how to do real estate. And because someone cared enough to pay for me to go to a training event, an affiliate, I actually realized that anything in life you want to do, there is somebody out there who's accomplished it, and all you have to do is get to where they are and then ask great questions and then just do whatever they tell you to do. just give it a try. And so that's what I did. I went to training events and started learning how to, do this real estate business, and my business started to do better. But one of the best bits of advice, and I can't remember who gave it to me, but I'm so thankful that they did, is someone told me very early in my career, you got to list to last. And so I didn't know what that meant or how to do it, but it stuck in my brain. And so as I began to do the business and ran myself ragged with buyers, ran out of gas with one after working with them for 2 years, and they still hadn't bought a house, I'd had enough. And I've got a pretty long tenacity trail, but when I've had enough, I'm done. So that's when I started reaching out and going, okay, list to last. How do I become a listing agent? And so I would go on to list, a couple hundred homes a year, because in our current market that we had back then, you had to list a lot to get a lot to sell. Now we don't have to have that, right? But I don't want you to lose that mindset, because if you keep the mindset that I got to go get more listings, even though it's really hard right now, then when the market shifts, you are going to fly. Your business is going to soar. And so I want you to get that mentality right now. And I'm going to challenge Leslie after we do this call, because I structured the information today more about immediately how do we get more listing appointments, because I know that's everybody's big issue right now. But what Leslie's holding in her hand is the actual full course on how to take 10 plus listings a month forever. And it focuses more on how to get really, really good at your presentation piece. So what I'm going to challenge somebody on this call to do is, after we finish this morning, fall in love with listings, understand you got to list to last, and that listings are the highest form of leverage. And then you go to Leslie and say, Leslie, I want to be the one that memorizes and internalizes that listing presentation that you have, and I want to teach it to the office. And then I want to challenge other agents in the office to role play and practice this listing presentation with me, because the listing presentation that Leslie has in that book is timeless, because it's all about the other people. It's a consultative style, and it's more about learning to ask great questions and to find out what people are really interested in, because you can't exceed their expectations if you don't know what their expectations are, right? So, but what I'm going to hit today is more of what people are needing right now is how do I get listings right now? How do I go out there in a very competitive market and get something that's so hard to get? So that's where we're going to start today. So Lucy, my co-host here, is going to throw up a little presentation, and I'm going to kind of hit it to keep me on track so that I cover as much as possible. And at the very end, I'm going to answer any questions you have or limiting beliefs or thoughts that you have around being a strong listing agent. And so we want to get those out of the way so that you don't hesitate to do that. So Leslie, let's go ahead and put that PowerPoint up if you would. Okay, so we're in a really tough market right now to get listings. So go ahead and we'll go ahead and click on that first PowerPoint. But if you've ever been around Gary Keller, you hear him say lead generation and lead conversion are the two most important business principles that we must master. So lead generation and lead conversion are never going to go away. They are always our issue, and we don't ever want to stop learning how to master both of these, right? So lead generation would be, how do I find the business? And lead conversion would be, what do I say when I get there? And how do I get people to choose me to do business with? So we'll keep going here, and let's just kind of talk about what you need to master and master fast. And that's going to be the principles to your success. So number one, we got to learn to say the right thing, right? There isn't a magical thing to say. And I'm always one of those that if you don't know what to say, just say something, because I believe that we actually learn in activity. We don't learn in the preparation. We actually learn the most by doing. And the problem is a lot of us don't want to go until we're 100% sure about what we're going to say or the right thing to say and all that stuff. And I don't want you to do that. I want you to go at 70 or 80%, and you'll learn a lot from the 80% to 100 by doing the activity. So number one, we got to say the right thing. All right, let's look at number next. Okay, so I want you to learn just a few great scripts, and because I think we meet enough people, we just don't get the conversation to go where we need it to go. So my favorite conversation, because I am the queen of profit share, and I'm always thinking about profit share, even when I'm taking listings. but we all like a backdoor approach to get someone to talk about real estate, right? It doesn't feel good to walk up to a complete stranger and say, hey, you think about selling or buying a house? You know, none of us want to do that. We get trepidation and we don't love doing that, right? So I want you to get used to saying, no matter who you meet, I think you might be great in my business, or I bet you'd be great in my business. And if I say that, what does someone have to say back to me? They have to say, well, what's your business? It's a compliment. But they got to know what they're getting complimented on. What is it I think they'd be great in? And the reason I want to say this is because I want to pray that they will actually say, oh, I've always thought about selling real estate. Because to be honest with you, besides listings, my other most favorite thing to get, or my actually most favorite thing to get over listings, is a recruit. So I'm going to start with that question, and I'm either going to get one of two things. I'm either going to get a person that has thought about selling real estate, hallelujah, all right, or I'm going to get someone that say, well, no, I haven't really thought about selling real estate. Because if someone says, well, what's your business? I have to say, well, you know, I'm in the business of helping people buy and sell real estate. Have you ever thought about a career in real estate? And they're either going to say, yes, I've thought about it, dreamed about it, loved it, which they usually don't, unfortunately, but I'm real happy when they do. Or they're going to say, well, no, but my sister needs to sell her house, or my mom needs to sell her house, or I need to sell my house. Either way, I win. See, I got a double chance of winning when I do this. See, the way you get more out of life is you figure out how to take those 24 hours that God gave us and you multiply it. Well, this is multiplying it. Because I got a chance either way, either that they might have someone to want to do business with me, or they might want to get in real estate. And then the next one that you can use for your database is, what are your real estate related plans for the year? Because that's a soft kind of question, and you're just asking them, what are their real estate related plans for the year? So you could use this on your database. You could use this out in public with somebody. It's just a real easy, not pushy, not crazy kind of way to talk to people about real estate. And then your database, if you just stop to always ask, can I count on you for 2 referrals this year? And this one I learned from Dave Norberg, and he is the master of getting referrals from his database. He makes over $1 million in commissions every year just from this one question, asking his database, can I count on you for 2 referrals this year? And then another one, and I think this one came from Ben Kinney, and it says, I'm planning my 2021 calendar and want to make sure I'm available for when my friends and family need me. What are your real estate related plans for the year so that I can make sure that I'm available to help? So I love these. So Lucy, we can go ahead and go to the next one. I love these because they're soft. They're very soft ways to approach and get a conversation to go to what we need it to go to, which is real estate. So, and this strategy comes for sale by owners, comes from a gentleman that I love that is from Michigan, and Jerry Bresser, and God bless him. He's still doing this today. He's in his 80s and he's still teaching this stuff, but it comes from a book that he has called List More, Sell More. And so you can find that book. It's probably out of print, but you could probably find it. And his strategy is to call for sale by owners and never promise that you have a buyer, but ask if you brought a buyer willing and able to pay a price acceptable to them, would they be willing to accept it from your firm? And then if they say yes, or they say no, you still say, well, then it would only take me a few moments to go through your home so I can tell prospective buyers about it. And can you see how that's really more of an approach than saying I actually have a buyer? Because here's what happens if you say I have a buyer. You could actually probably have a buyer in this market right now. However, if that buyer doesn't like their home, they hold that against you. So you don't want to put yourself in that position, right? And then, so the rest is great. It'll only take me a few moments to go through your home. And whether a person says yes or no, almost all your scripts that you ever need to memorize, internalize should go either way. Or you could go back and say, so if I brought a buyer that was willing and able to pay a price acceptable to you, you would not accept that from my firm? Because that's kind of a logical question that if they've answered no to, it's illogical. So it kind of is hard for them to say no to that. All right, so let's go ahead and go to the next one. Cold calls. And these are great right now. It's called circle prospecting, and you've got a lot of buyers probably that didn't get a house, that got missed out on it. You guys will have this PowerPoint, so you can download it and use it afterwards, so you don't have to feel like you have to write excessively right now, because Lucy has this and you guys can share it. And this one just basically tells them that we sold a house down the street, and we need more homes, right? And so this will work in the kind of market that we're in right now. All right, so let's go ahead and see what's next. A lot of people, if you want to get serious about it, they use Mojo Dollars, they use Cold Realty Resource. And this is kind of the conversion. If you really want to get good at cold calls, God bless you. And I don't know why in the world anybody would be this sick to want to do this, but there are people, and I wasn't one of them. So I had to figure out different ways, and I had to build mine through more relationships and marketing and things like that, because I was just unwilling to sit and call massively. And to be honest with you, I encourage you to still market, even if you're going to make cold calls, because here's the problem. Fast forward 10 or 15 or 20 years when you want to replace yourself. I've coached a lot of people to try to replace themselves like I did in my business and turn it over to a business. And it's almost impossible for people who massively only cold call, because you're not going to go find another person that just wants to massively cold call for your business. So it's a lot harder, not impossible, but a lot harder. Whereas with my business, when Brad stepped in, I had done some prospecting and some cold call, but I had done a marketing base with prospecting enhanced, not the other way around. And so it was easier business to turn over to someone, because it was my name recognition that was causing people to call the most. And that's an easier handoff to someone when you want to take your business to what Gary likes to call the 7th level. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll hit the next point, door knocking. This is just kind of strategies that have worked for some of our agents in the office. And so we've just sold the house down the street to your neighbors, and the Jones family are moving away. Wanted to give them a special gift from us representing them as your realtor. Would you mind signing a farewell card to them? And my daughter-in-law says she's never had someone say no to this. So this is a great strategy just to get to meet your neighbors. Remember, this is the person that gets toe-to-toe the most will win the most, right? All right, and then next one is direct mail strategy. And I believe direct mail is getting more and more where it can work, because the mailboxes have gotten empty, right? And so this is an agent out of our Dayton office, and this is something that's been working for her. So you can kind of see this letter that, would you be interested in selling your home to a client of mine? Please call me. And she gives her phone number. And we'll go ahead and we'll talk about her whole process here. So next one is kind of how she does it. Lee's sending out 1,000 of these mailers at a time in black and white. Her assistant stuffs them into envelopes, and her mother-in-law hand addresses them each one. And the total cost of doing that is about $300. They get the list of homeowners off Real List tax records, and they always send to an area they actually have a buyer looking in. So they're not making up the story that I have a buyer for your area. They actually are doing that. You want to always stay true and authentic as much as you can, because otherwise always, because it doesn't work if you don't. People see through when you're not. And then when it rings the voicemail number and asks them to leave a voicemail with the following information so that she has it: number, email, home address. They look up the address. They do a little recon before they call them back. And then someone on Lee's team will call the homeowner and set a 30-minute Zoom for them with Lee. And then if the home is a match for one of Lee's clients, they go see it. If not, they discuss listing it. So that's kind of Lee's approach, and it's been very, very effective for her. Okay, so look at the results. So far, she sent 10,000 letters, resulting in 5 listings. 2 need to buy. 1 referred her to another client in a pipeline of future sellers. And that's where the real value is that pipeline of future people, right? So the goal is to send 24,000 by October. She's currently holding 7 to 10 Zoom appointments per week. So this is a great little strategy that you can use with Zoom right now. Okay. Next, we've got listing presentation. You've got the best one there in that book that Leslie has. It's the consultative approach. It'll beat sell and tell every time. And it's actually in there in a way that you can actually role play it with each other and memorize it. So I would just take that. Someone on here champion the fact that you're going to memorize, internalize it, and teach it to the office. And then you guys get together and role play and practice it. And then if you don't have your own results, then be sure and use that of your market centers, which you can do. And then number 2, say it enough times, because the truth is this is a numbers game. It always has been and always will be. You just got to keep saying the same things over and over. And then the more times you say them, the more success that you're going to get. All right, so here's your simple action plan. I want you to talk to about 20 to 25 people about real estate every day. Use one of the scripts. I personally like mine, which is the first one, because I would rather find a recruit than I had a listing. And so that sets me up to do that. If I do any of the others, I may not get a recruit, right? But I looked around in my office one day and 8 of my best agents were my past clients. So I like getting, I would rather get a recruit than I had a listing. That's my first choice. And then listing is my second choice. And then anyone who's not ready today, but will be in the next 12 months or so, is what you call a nurture. And then you're going to put them in a cultivate phase and command and communicate with them over time. But of course, anyone who's ready to buy or sell now in the next 30 to 90 days, you're going to go ahead and set that appointment. And whatever time they tell you in the nurture, be sure and scoot it up a little bit, because people decide to change their mind. And so about half the time, make sure you touch base and call them. Okay, we're not going to go over profit share opportunity. What I really want to do now, you can go ahead and take this down, because this is when I teach both of them together. But what I want to do is I want to kind of tell you, there is one thing I want you to write down. So if you will, and I can't believe it wasn't on that presentation. It's on the profit share part, but it also works on the listing part. So this is my formula for anything you're going to tell me to go build. So I want you to write a capital R on your paperwork. I want you to put the plus sign, a capital V, and another plus sign, and another capital V, and then draw a line under all 3 of those letters and put a capital T. And so what does that mean? So what that means is anything you want to build, whether it's your real estate business, your listing inventory, whatever you want to do, the first thing you have to decide is, who do you want to be a hero to? Because if you don't enjoy the people that you're going to be working with, you're going to get burnt out. You're not going to want to do it. You're going to hate it. And who wants to do something they hate, right? So for me, I tend to love listings. Obviously, that's the relationships I picked. I gave all my buyers completely away because I just did not enjoy those relationships. So for me, it's listings. Plus, I want the highest form of leverage. So number one, the group I picked to be in relationship with is sellers. And then in that category, my favorite ones is other entrepreneurs or other business owners. Everything you do in life, you will either get a spark of energy or it will drain your energy. So I want you to start paying attention to who of all the people that you've helped lights your fire and gives you energy, because you'll get up and want to find more of those people. So for me, because my husband and I owned small businesses, I love the business entrepreneur. I love helping those people because I can have a more deeper conversation than just about their house. I can actually talk intelligently about other things with them. I like to use the shift book, the one thing book, because those all becomes a form of validity. So, and that ties us into the very first V. The very first V is for validity. See, I can teach you all about listings all day long, but if you don't have the validity when you go out there, they will not pick you. And so it won't do any good. So what is validity? Validity, I like to say validity like this: everybody has it and nobody thinks they do, right? But everybody has it. So what is validity? It's your knowledge, your skills, your language you've used, your past experiences you've had, your successes, and especially your failures. Those all give you a form of validity that you have or can develop. However, you can also use other people's validity. See, no, we're not good enough to make a buyer buy, a seller sell, or an agent join. Our job is to help people self-discover that you're the person that should list their house. And the way you do that is you have enough validity, and then you go to the next V, which is you figure out what their value gap is, and you help them self-discover that you're the person to fill that value gap. So let's talk about the other V, which is value gap. Zig Ziglar says it best when he said, the way you get what you want out of life is to help enough other people get what it is they want. And the key part of that whole phrase is, I got to ask great questions to find out what they want. And that's what I love about that listing presentation that Leslie has there for you, that I've been teaching for 20 plus years, is it makes you ask great questions and find out what their value gap is, so you don't go around and assume that what everybody wants is the most money, because there are a lot of people they'd rather have their time than they had the most money. And if you explain it to them that way, they're going to pick time over money. So, or they might pick time over, less hassles or things they have to do for the house over money. But if we go in and we automatically assume that everybody's number one interest is the most money, and you got to be careful because that may not be true, and you may misinterpret what's super important to people, and you can't exceed their expectations if you don't know what they are. So I want you to kind of think about that as you do your presentation. What are great questions am I asking? How am I getting people to self-discover? Because remember, we're not good enough to make a buyer buy, a seller sell, or an agent join. Our job is to get them to self-discover. And the 3 best ways to do that is great questions. If I can ask them great questions and learn to be quiet and let them listen, let them answer and let silence do the heavy lifting, then they hear themselves talking, and that's the most powerful. The second way is stories that I can share that they can see themselves in. If I can explain to them about the people down the street that didn't take their first offer and took 10,000 or 5,000 or 2,000 less later, that story is more impactful than me trying to explain to them why it's important to price their house right? So stories are another great way to get people to self-discover. And then the best way is experientially. And you'll know what I'm talking about when you think about somebody that you've ever taken, got them in the car and took them and showed them what some of the competition is so that they could really understand why they needed to price their house a certain way. So experientially is the best way we get people to self-discover what they need to do, right? Testimonials are a great way also that you use to help other people see that you succeeded at a high level for other people. So this formula is something that you're going to use whether you're building your profit share, whether you're building your real estate business, whatever. But I want you to start paying attention, because if you pick the right relationships, that matters. Another thing that I picked when I picked my relationships is I picked the bread and butter price range. I picked a price range that no matter what market's going on, they sell like hotcakes. I didn't pick over $1 million in our area because it would take forever for those things to sell. And I just didn't want the hassle of dealing with those kind of people that I had to be talking to all the time because their house like to never sell. In our market, it's extremely difficult. In your market, $1 million house may be bread and butter price range. I don't know. So taking some time to figure out what relationships do you want to spend your career and who could you spend the next 25 years helping and never get exhausted or tired or hungry or any of those things that happen when we don't like what we're doing, right? And then what are you doing to increase your validity? How many times have you spent practicing your listing presentation? That creates validity. What other knowledge are you getting so that when you go in and talk to someone, see, here's the thing. If I go in and talk to another entrepreneur and my knowledge is very good on the real estate side, but I can also talk to them about something in their business, my validity shoots through the roof, right? So validity is all kinds of things. It's your knowledge. It's how many books you're reading. What information do you know? Because that all makes you sound different than the next realtor that comes in that hasn't read any books, that doesn't understand anything that this person can relate to. So the more versed you are, the more valid you are. And then the value gap really is about learning to ask great questions. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being this is a great transaction for you, or 1, I totally waste your time. What has to happen this evening for you guys to, what has to happen in this transaction for you guys to feel great? And I'd always tease and say, and tell all your friends that you got to use the McKissick group. What do I got to do? And that's the way that you get people to actually, understand that they need to prioritize, and you need to know clearly what's important to them. Don't assume or guess that you know what that is. And so to me, this is kind of the secret formula. And then the T stands for time. Everything takes time. And if you want to master something, you got to put the time in it. See, I teach certain classes every year and I put the time in on them because those are super important for me to master. So career visioning is one of them, because I always want to be top grading my talented people, because that's the highest form of leverage for any business is the people they surround themselves with. I also love fierce conversations because I need to master how to have the harder conversations better always. And then I love when I'm teaching, and when I was listing, 200 homes a year, I teach listings in my office, because the more you teach, the more you master. And I want to put time in on the stuff that matters the most. And so whatever you choose, you have to be willing to put the time in. It's that 10,000 hours over time. And so that's what the T stands for, is if I'm going to build wealth, I got to be realistic about how much time I have to spend around learning it, practicing it, doing it. If I want to be a great listing agent, I have to be realistic about how much have I practiced my listing presentation? What objections do I know have great scripts and dialogues for? And in that class that Leslie has, I'll say learn 3 objections for any objection you might get from a seller. And you just keep using those over and over again. And sometimes you have to say the same thing to that seller over and over and over again. And then just make sure that you always set yourself up to super exceed their expectations. Always under promise and over deliver. And if you do those things, people are going to send their friends, their family, everybody they know to you, because people like someone, especially nowadays, to under promise and over deliver. A lot of people over deliver and then under promise. Actually, I had written down RTT. Yeah, it's R plus V over T. So there we go. It's simple but not easy. And I am writing a full course around this I've just hired a girl that is good at things that I'm not good at to help me do that, because I do feel like this formula works for whatever in life you want to build or grow or expand on. So the R was for relationships. Who do you want to be a hero to? Who are you trying to get to do something? That's what the R stands for. I could use this same formula with my family. What relationships are important to me? And what's my validity? What am I doing to enrich that relationship? What am I doing to learn how to be a better mom, a better sister, a better friend? And then what's their value gaps? Where are places that I can step into their gaps and fill them for them and help them? See, because the second V is about value gaps. And here's the thing, when you fill someone's value gap, you create this magical thing called beholdedness. And beholdedness or reciprocity is massively powerful. It causes people to want to give or do something back for you. They can't stand that you've given and given and given. And I have a philosophy that says you can't outgive what you're going to get. It's just not possible. And I have a friend named Joe Polish that has a great saying that says, life gives to the giver and takes from the taker. So really, if you just get up every day and you figure out who these people are you're trying to be a hero to, and how do you keep finding them and filling their value gap, the rest will take care of itself. That's really the part that you have to focus on. So before I get too far off, I want to do a couple things. And we can, I don't know, Leslie, how you prefer to do this, but we can either open the mic up and people can say theirs, but what are some of your limiting beliefs around being a strong listing agent? What are those little thoughts in our head that kind of keep us and hold us back a little bit? Because we all have them. And you might look at someone that takes 100 listings, 200 listings a year and think they don't, but I'm going to tell you they do. So what are some of those limiting beliefs and mooring lines that we hold on to? And then what questions, so that I can kind of fill in, because I teach this stuff all the time. I want to make sure I fill in the gaps of something I've forgotten to tell you. And your questions trigger me to go, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you about this. So let's open it up and kind of do that for a few minutes so that I can make sure I'm not missing pieces, or that you don't have gaps or limiting beliefs that are going to hold you back. So Leslie, is it okay if they unmute and do that?
Absolutely. Go forward with that. You can just unmute and start. And I know it's a little challenging sometimes when you're on Zoom to do that, because sometimes more than one person is talking at a time. But that's perfect. Or you can raise your hand so we can see you and make sure you get to talk as well. We have Lucy on the line. She's monitoring everything, so we're good. So
yeah, put the question in chat even, and we'll watch that, whichever you feel most comfortable. But I would go out tomorrow and be a massive listing agent. However, and then whatever your however is kind of a gap that we've left out, or a belief that's holding us back.
Okay. Anybody? Because I actually have one.
Okay.
So this is about maybe 15 years ago. I make a listing appointment and they tell me they also have the queen of that area coming to present to them as well.
Mhm.
And you know her very well. So I was at Weichert. This is actually 17 years ago. I was at Weichert and I had a listing appointment for this house in Manalapan. And they say, oh, by the way, Adele DeMore is coming tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right then and there, I'm like, oh, forget this, right? I'm not going to get this listed. So that for me was a limiting belief because I assumed the top agent in that area would get the listing.
Yeah.
So I talked myself into going to the listing appointment to just, practice.
Yeah.
And I didn't even follow up like I normally do. I just assumed,
Yep.
It was a done deal. So that's one of the things that, we have this idea that we're not the top agent. We're not going to get it. And to be honest with you, when they called me for me to take the listing, I was like, what?
Yeah.
Right. So I think the key is we're going to get some, we're going to lose some, and we just keep going. But that for me was a great revelation because we have in our mind that, somebody else is going to get it. Somebody else is better. Somebody else is more have more experience and everything to get the listing.
Yeah, and one time that happened to me, and it was interesting because I wasn't prepared for it, and so I had never prepared any kind of scripts and dialogues or objections for it. And I remember I went on the appointment, and the lady says, "Well, Cindy is my neighbor, and we're probably going to list with her." And I said, "Well, I'm like, honestly, I didn't know what to say." So when I went away, I thought, well, okay, what would have been a good thing to say? And so here's the thing. My question would be, well, I'm just curious. Oh, no, here's what I did say to her. I said, I'm just curious. Why did you call me out? And here's literally what the woman said to me. Well, everybody knows you're the best. This is what she said to me. So this is in reverse of what you're saying, because Cindy was probably one of the worst agents ever, honestly. But, I can't say that to the seller, right? She's not even doing it full time. She's her neighbor. So I just said, well, I'm curious, why'd you call me out? And that's what she said. Well, everybody knows the McKissick group is the best, literally what she said. And I didn't know what to say after that. So here's what I would say. First of all, I would have asked, well, I'm just curious, what was your reasoning for calling me out? Or if they say to you, well, I'm going to pick so-and-so, I'd ask why. I'm just curious, why'd you call me out? And then the other thing I would probably say is, if you knew there was an agent that could net you more money in the shortest amount of time with fewer hassles, would you still list with Cindy? That's what I should have said to the lady. Would you? But if you don't believe in yourself, they're sure not going to, right? See, what I would say is, if you don't believe you're the best person for the job, go work on that piece. That's your validity. Go work on your validity, right? So that you do feel that way. And so that's what I would say is, if you're thinking that way, go work more on your validity, because you have to walk in there and be the person that you absolutely believe you're the best person for the job. But I know exactly what you're talking about because it happened to me in reverse. But, she was going to list with her neighbor, who was probably one of the worst choices she could have made. I'm like, no, pick anybody but her. But I didn't say that, because you can't say things like that. You have to just say, you can't say, well, you can pick that realtor, but she's going to be drunk by 3. So don't call her after 3. You can't say any of that stuff, right? You just try to learn, what could I say differently that would still keep my integrity, but get this person to look at things differently. So one of my favorite phases is if they say, I have a mother, father, sister, friend, somebody else in the business. I just say, well, I'm just curious, if you knew there was an agent that could net you more money in the shorter amount of time with fewer hassles, would you still pick that person? Because any logical person can't say yes to that. So then I just got to show them the places where I've actually netted people more money. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I see on the chat here, Ron has a question for Linda. And I also see Joe says that he hears a lot from people, I'm too new.
Yeah, perfect.
So Linda, what I don't want to do is take away from the listing portion. But the fact that we have you on this call, I have a question that I'd love to ask you just about profit share. So what I don't want to do is take away if anybody else has another question, but I'd love to take advantage of the opportunity to ask you a question about profit share. Can I do that?
Yep, you can. Let's do this. Let me get Joseph, and then we're going to come right back to you on that. I don't see any more on here. I'd love to, because that's one of my favorite topics. So I'm happy always to talk about that. So Joseph says, I hear I'm too new. So my question to you is Joseph, how do they know that you're new? Because if you follow, this is the same thing. Actually, Ron, this is going to answer a profit share question too. Because the reason it doesn't work for us to build our profit share is we make it about Keller Williams. You got to make it about the person, right? So just like a listing shouldn't be able to say you're too new, a recruit shouldn't be able to say you're just trying to recruit me. Because if I'm making this all about them and I'm asking great questions on the listing side of it, I don't know how they know that I'm new, right? So my language better not show that I'm new, because if that's the case, I need to get back in the training room and get my scripts and dialogues and my stuff down, because the only way they're going to go think you're too new is if you start trying to compare your stats against somebody else's stats, right? But the listing presentation that Leslie has teaches you to ask them great questions about them and what's important to them. And then you only hit the parts that show how you're going to meet and exceed those expectations. And you also tell them in the very front end that you may have a need or an expectation that I don't feel like I can meet or exceed. And if we do get to that point, I'd rather let you down now than disappoint you later. So I kind of automatically do a takeaway that says, I might not choose you. That feels different than you might not choose me, right? So Joseph, what I would say is memorize and internalize the presentation that Leslie has that's more about them, and don't get into your stats compared to somebody else's stats, and if they bring it up, then I would just say, I'm just curious, what about that is concerning to you? Because, I would be able to come back and say, because at the end of the day, I'm going to have more time to dedicate to you. And I can promise you this, if you ever feel like me being new is causing your home from selling for top dollar, all you got to do is make one phone call to me and I'll release you, no problems asked. Because see, if I can give them that kind of reassurance on what they might be concerned about, or I might turn it into a question and say, I'm just curious. If I know what they do, let's say I know that they're a car salesman. I'm saying, I'm just curious, were you ever new once? And they say, well, yeah, I was new once. So let me ask you a question, because now you're very successful at what you do. What did you have to do when you were new that other people didn't have to do? And he goes, well, I have to work harder. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make them think about what they're saying. And I'm either going to ask, what's the worst thing that could be a consequence to them? And I'm going to promise them that if they ever feel like that's going to happen, I'll release their listing, no question asked. Does that help, Joseph? I hope. And then somebody else, Jesse has a question, I think, or somebody else.
Hi. My question is, I've been in real estate for 2 years now, and I've been working with a lot of buyers. I, of course, want to get listings. My thing is, I'm having a little difficulty because here in New York, we cannot solicit. So I have difficulty in what to say where it doesn't sound like I want their business. Do you have any suggestions?
The scripts I gave you is, have you ever thought about a career in real estate? That's not soliciting their business. That's recruiting somebody for a job, for an opportunity.
Okay.
Yeah, I would use that one all day long, because here's the thing, to be honest with you, I hope the heck they say yes, because I like profit share. My profit share money is way bigger than all my years of listing 200 homes a year. So I'll go for somebody getting the business all day long. So I go that route. I'd say, you might be good in my business. That very first script up there, I would use that, because you're not soliciting their real estate business, but you're making the conversation go to that. And they might bring up to you that they want to buy a house or sell a house, or sister needs to sell a house or something. Does that make sense?
Yes. My other question is, like, can I really use that for strangers? Like, what can I use for strangers, like for sell by owners and expireds, where it doesn't sound like I want their business? That's where I get stuck.
Okay, well, I'm just kind of confused. Do you mean you can't call anybody and ask them for their business?
Yes, we're not supposed to do cold calls.
Okay, then here's what I would do. I would do the same thing. I would say, I noticed that you have your house for sale, and I'm just curious, have you ever thought about a career in real estate?
Okay.
I'm going to get the conversation to go there. And here's the thing. Now I want to address something, because I feel like, do you go by Jesse?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I want to address something, because I feel like I heard a little bit of something in there about, can I approach a stranger about this? And part of you, some of you might say, well, what if I don't think they'd be good in real estate? Then here's what I'm going to say to you. Shame on you. Because who are we to decide by someone's look or appearance or anything else that they wouldn't be good in real estate? And I'm going to tell you, 2 companies turned me down when I was brand new because they didn't think I had what it took to make it. So sorry for them. They're out of business now. And Keller Williams is number 1 in that marketplace because we're there. So be careful. Don't feel like you have the right to say whether somebody would or wouldn't. And I'm not saying you do that, but I know sometimes that's what we're going to think. But I want the whole freaking world to be in real estate because I'm going to make more money from Gary Keller's profit share. All of us will. If you just worked on building your downline in the long run, and you were successful at it, you'd make more money than building a real estate practice for 30 years. So I'm always going to go that route. And it opens the door to talk about real estate, right?
That makes sense. Absolutely.
So that's what I would do. Absolutely.
Thanks.
You bet. Yes. Will the presentation that Leslie has be shared via email? Leslie, you can answer that, but I'm sure you will, right?
Yeah, I'm going to say this. I don't know if you guys heard the whole sentence that Linda attached to this. It would be my pleasure to share it with you, but there were some conditions. Okay, I want to make sure you get those conditions. The condition is that you're going to master it.
Yes.
And you're going to teach it.
Yeah.
And you're going to practice it.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm going to encourage Linda. We were talking before this meeting. She's going to update some things on here. This is the class I took 10 years ago. But she's going to update it.
Yeah, well, that and the part I was really going to update, Leslie, is there's not much on lead generation in there. So the piece that I just shared, that's what we're going to be putting in there. So you have both of them right now as far as we are. But over time, I will probably tweak it and work on it a little bit also.
Right. So definitely, I'll give it to anyone, but I just want you to remember the other part.
Yeah.
You're going to master it. You're going to teach it because that's another way to master it. And you're also going to do practice. You're going to practice with each other on it. I think Ron had a question, so I'm going to.
Yeah, and I want to address Ron's question because Ron, it's the very same formula. I use that very same formula. Actually, the formula, I created it for a profit share course. We've just written an online profit share course that I'm finishing up the videos right now, critiquing them, making sure we didn't forget anything. And that'll be rolling out probably in the next few weeks. Where what we're going to do is we're going to sell the online course for profit share, which is this very same formula. And then for anybody who gets the course once a month, they can jump on live calls with me. And I'm going to walk you through, like if you got stumbled somewhere or you don't know how to answer something or somebody came back with something and you're like, Linda, I wasn't prepared for this, or I'm stuck here. We're going to get you unstuck so that you keep moving along and you do not forget about building your profit share because guys, I'm telling you, it's the most dollar productive thing we can do and listings are next, right? So Ron, to answer your question, I want to hear your question, but remember this formula was actually written. My son actually realized, Mom, this is exactly what you do in your profit share. And then when I thought about it, it's exactly what I did to build my real estate practice. And it's exactly what I did to go build Keller Williams in Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky. So they're not two separate things. They're the same thing. We just got to put them in that context. So Ron, what is your specific question about profit share? Because it'll probably actually relate to listings too, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. So I own a market center in North Jersey, and I have a business partner. And so we've only been with KW for 2 years. So, I really see profit share as like one of those major differentiating factors between the company I came from and all other companies. So 2 questions for you. 1, what would you consider your number 1 recruiting tactic? And 2, would you consider strategically building a downline outside of your area, maybe even your state? And if so, what did you do to do it?
Okay, great questions. Okay, so my number 1 strategic thing is the R plus V plus V. In other words, I looked around and I said, what relationships are going to be the most easiest for me to start? And for me, it just happened to be, Ron, that I had been part of mastermind groups and some different things like that. So those relationships were relationships I already had. And I'd already been kind of teaching and pouring into people. So teaching is a great tool for me because I love doing it. Now, remember, we want to do things that we love, because if you don't love it, you're not going to want to get up every day and do it. And part of your validity is what you're already helping people with, or what would be easy for you to help people with. So for me, my R in profit share is mega agents or untouchables. And the reason that is because new people's drain my energy. They suck the life out of me because there's so many things they don't know. I don't enjoy helping them, right? But in our profit share course, one module of it is my son telling people how to do the online thing that him and his little buddy is doing. And his little buddy made $5,600 last month and has been doing it 3 years. So he's one module will be completely that. That won't work for everybody, but it'll work for a few people, okay? But for me, I don't want to do that because I don't like get on a phone with new people. They suck the life out of me. But you give me a mega or somebody that when you guys looked at in the marketplace, you'd go, there's no way they have any gaps. These people have it all together. They got all their crap together. Those are the ones I love because I know for a fact that they're missing something. They're either missing passive income, they're missing leverage, they're missing freedom. They're missing the things that I love helping people with, right? So that's who I'm going to pick as my R for profit share. If you don't know who you're going to pick a few above your production, a few below your production, and a few at your production, because you have natural validity already for those people, right? So then the next thing is, what is my validity and how do I use it? And so remember, you've got natural validity, your experiences, your stories, your failures, all those things make you valid to help other people. Then what I got to figure out is, of those people I've picked, and I always say never pick more than 5 or 10, because you can't go deep with that many people. So don't pick 100 people, pick 5 and start with 5. Put them on a whiteboard in front of you, put their name, and look for opportunities to start that relationship with them. And so then once I start the relationship, my 2 ways to start the relationship is a compliment, because nobody ever minds a new one. Nobody gets enough of them, or ask them their thoughts or their input, which, by the way, I would use this same thing if I was trying to approach a seller or anybody else I want to start a relationship with. That's why I'm telling you these formulas are interchangeable. I want you to look at this formula for anything in the world you're trying to do from now on. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my validity to sound intelligent to them, to start a conversation with them, to intrigue them, to be interesting and interesting. I want to be interesting, but I also want to be interested. So the interested means I'm not going to talk. I want them to talk 80 or 90% of the time, and I'm going to talk 10 or 20, but that 10 or 20, I'm going to be interesting so that they want to engage with me, right? Con in Spanish means with, so I can't have a versation. I got to have a con. I got to throw a little bit in, and that little bit should make me sound interesting enough that they want to continue talking to me. And then their value gap is just me figuring out what's missing in their life right now. So I might say, hey, Ron, this is Linda. And I don't say the words Keller Williams or KW very much. I just say, hey, Ron, this is Linda. I'm just reaching out. You and I just did a deal on 123 Main Street. And I just want to tell you how much I appreciate your responsiveness and how quickly you got back to us. And I really appreciate that. And I just hope that you and I can do more deals together. I'm going to be quiet. You're going to say, well, thank you, Linda, very much. That's awesome. I enjoy doing deals with you. And then I'm going to say, hey, well, Ron, while I have you on the phone, I really respect you in the business. And I'm just curious, what have been some of your challenges trying to do business with COVID, or whatever is the market of the moment conversation? You're going to talk. I'm going to listen. If you say listings are the problem, it's not getting enough listings, which is what majority of people say right now. I just say, I hear you. And I'm just curious. I've been attending a lot of training and stuff myself lately, trying to, put the pieces together. What have you had any great training that really has helped? And I always start with the great training question first, because I don't want to put a line between their company and mine. And usually what I'm wanting them to do is, what will happen is they'll say, well, no, actually, we haven't had much training. And I would say, well, if you did, because I'm always looking for great training for our offices too. If you did, what kind of training do you think would be beneficial right now? And I might throw into something like, a training I went to the other day with some top agents telling how they are doing business during COVID. And that was pretty valuable. I'm just listening for cues from you to tell me, oh God, that sounds really good. Or yeah, I wish I had that. Now I'm just writing this stuff down, because after we hang up in 2 or 3 days, I'm going to call you back and say, You know, Ron, I was thinking about our conversation the other day, and one of the things that you mentioned that you really were struggling with during all this is how to get more listings. And I don't know if you'd be offended or not, but I just attended How to Take 10 Plus Listings a Month Forever, and I'd be happy to share some of that with you if it would be helpful. All I'm going to do is take their value gap, start dropping things into it, and creating beholdenness and reciprocity. I would do the same thing if it was a for sale by owner. I would start trying to help them while they're being a for sale by owner. And if they say to me, well, why would you help me do that? I'd say, because 85% of the people that go for sale by owner eventually look for a professional realtor to help them. And you know what? I just want that opportunity should that come along. Or you may have a friend or a neighbor that doesn't want to try it on their own. And so if you get to that place, I'd like to be the person that you respect enough to refer. Is that fair enough? And so I'm just giving. And then when the opportunity is right, or I feel the frustration, I'm going to ask to step into that gap. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. That's what I'm telling you. It's exactly this. And by the way, then I got to give it whatever amount of time it takes for that agent to self-discover that what they need to fulfill their dreams and goals are going to be better served here at KW. And that's when they'll start asking me questions about Keller Williams and KW. Does that make sense? Did I answer the question?
You answered the first question. My other question was a little bit more broad spectrum.
Like we're going down.
Yeah, so everything there is like that hyper local. Would you consider doing anything outside of your area? And if so, what have you done?
Well, I have, because that was where my natural expert, I did local too, because I was the #1 agent in my city. And thank God I had never been crappy to people. I'd always offered a hand to help someone. I'm come from the place, I don't feel like you have to lose for me to win. And that has paid off for me. If you've been the kind of person that you haven't valued other agents' relationships, and by the way, let's be honest, this is an industry that happens. See, the reason your profit share isn't bigger is because you think your buyers and sellers are more important. And see, I think agents are more important. So the minute you switch that and you think agents are more important, the way you treat them in a transaction will change, and you know how you see them will change. So thank God, I had always been one of those people that if I went to a seminar, I'd come back to my office manager and go, oh, I'm so excited. Let me teach this on Tuesday at our office meeting. She'd go like, oh God, here she goes again. But people saw me as someone. Now they saw me as big competition, and I did have to overcome that some, because brokers would use that against me when I owned the office. But what I would say is, look, here's the thing. If you go up against me on a listing presentation and you're in my office, the difference is I'm going to help you, and I'm going to share with you how you can get it next time, or how you could have got it this time. But when you're over there, I'm not sharing any of that stuff. So yes, McKissick Group may wind up being your competition, but aren't they going to be your competition whether you're over there or over here? But over here, I open my books to you and I show you exactly what kind of presentation to do. So I kind of take away from what that other broker's been telling them, if you're, your big producer in your area. So, but I believe in the ink blot formula. What's your next natural door that's easiest to open? Don't go 400 miles if you can go 5, right? So how long you been in the real estate business?
15 years.
Okay, so in that 15 years, hopefully you've created some validity, right? And goodwill and opportunities. So I would start there and go out that way. The only reason I would go somewhere else is if I was in a mastermind or at a training event and I met people from other locations. Does that make sense? But I'm going to go what's ever easiest and closest first. Same thing with our real estate investing. I don't go 400 miles to invest. I go within 40 or less to do investing first, learn there. Then when you get the opportunity, it's going to be easier to do it long distance. It's harder to do long distance if you don't know what you're doing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Anyone else? Any other questions? Because I think we're going to start wrapping up. I do have to say, and I know Deb is probably on the call right now, because she's a good friend of Linda's. Linda, you went mute for some reason. I didn't hear you.
I said you close right there with you.
Yeah, she is. She's somewhere there. But I want to say, Deb can probably tell the story. I'll start it. I don't know where she's at. I can't find her on there. I can't see her.
I see her on the call.
Yeah, okay, great. Deb had mentioned to me that she met Linda at an event.
Yep.
And
Yes, I did. I actually met Linda at Howard Britton Star Power meeting, and I wasn't getting the kind of training that I was looking for to grow my business to different levels. So I took a train from Metuchen and went down to Washington, D.C. And I kept, I was in a class that Linda was teaching with, what's that guy? Mendoza. And so Mike Mendoza was the other instructor. And after the class, I had to go over and talk to Linda about what is this Keller Williams I keep hearing about. Now, remember, this was like 16 years ago. So it was Keller who. And the point being, though, is that Linda was teaching. And so that is actually how I met her. And it is something that you can, you have to just be next door. But like Linda says, you want to be maybe within the 5 miles or so, who are the people that you know and maybe have had relationship and closings with. But that's how we met. I was in Washington, D.C. She was from Texas. And there you go.
Hey, Deborah, let me make a point here with this. See, I also kind of believe if we dug a little deeper, we could find the validity that Mike and I had. So if Deborah is in the class, our language was probably already propelling Keller Williams because we had been learning massively from Gary. So when you open your mouth and you've been learning all the stuff that we have available to us at Keller Williams and you open your mouth, you're going to sound different than other people. And that's going to be attractive to people who are wanting to build big lives or big businesses. So I'm going to make the point that more than likely and I don't even remember what Mike and I were teaching, but when Mike and I were teaching, our validity showed through because we'd already been getting trained by Keller Williams. So we already had some validity that other trainers weren't going to have because of our education with KW. Would you say that's correct, Deborah?
Yes, I definitely would say that's correct. What I was hearing a lot was, about profit share. And I knew that was something I had never heard about before. So that was one of the things. And plus the value system, talking about the values, I had never heard about the company that I was at before had never once shared anything about having values. So those were the two important things that I heard that day. We asked Linda, how can I find out more about this company?
Yeah, perfect. Love it. Thanks for that example. That's perfect. So I'm just going to.
I'm going to add something to that. So Deb, having been born and raised in Metuchen, when she found out where the Keller Williams was, she was like, "I'm not going over there." So Linda said, "Well, open your own office," and so the rest is history, right? So how tremendous is that? What companies do tell you to go and open your own office? So that was pretty interesting, to say the least.
Probably moments when she goes, "I hate that Linda McKissick, dang her."
Yeah.
I doubt that. Well, anyways, I definitely want to take the opportunity to thank Linda for your time, time is something so valuable. You can go out and make more money, but you can't go out and make more time, right? So always so appreciative when you come in and pour into us. And I want to thank you so much for that and for everything else that you've done. I know you've written a couple of books. You also contributed to our red book, our blue book, and all that other stuff as well. So thank you so much for coming in and being so generous and sharing with our agents. Love you, Linda. All right. Take care, guys. Thank you for coming. And yes, we will email you this book and also the slides. If you email me or text me, I'll get that to you. All right.
Thank you, Linda.
All right. Thank you, Linda. All right, guys. Go enjoy the rest of the day. Have a good one. Thanks, Lucy.
You're welcome.
All right. Have a good one, guys. Thank you.